LitRPG versus Progression Fantasy versus GameLit. A plain English guide. A reader's on-ramp for the integration era. You've seen the three words used as if they mean the same thing. You've also seen someone get corrected about it, firmly, in a comment thread. Somewhere between those two experiences is a real distinction worth 90 seconds of your time, and a lot of fake precision that isn't worth any of it. Here's the honest version. The terms overlap, the boundaries are argued over by people who care a great deal, and you can enjoy all of it without sorting any of it. But the distinction is genuinely useful when you're searching for your next book, or trying to recommend one. So here it is, cleanly. Here's the fast answer. Progression fantasy. The story is about a character getting measurably, visibly stronger. LitRPG, that growth is shown with explicit game mechanics, stats, levels, skills, system text on the page. GameLit, the broad umbrella for fiction that feels like, or takes place in, a game, with or without the hard numbers. LitRPG lives inside it. Everything else is just that, expanded. The reason these terms tangle is that two of them describe what a story is about, and the others describe how it's built. Sort them by question, and the knot loosens. First question, what's the engine of the story? If it's a character climbing in power through effort, that's progression fantasy. Second question, how is that climb rendered on the page? If the book uses literal game machinery, a stat screen, a level up notification, that's LitRPG. If it only has a game flavor or a game setting, without the strict numbers, that's the looser term, GameLit. So progression fantasy is a what? LitRPG and GameLit are a how. That's why one book can wear more than one label at the same time. Start with progression fantasy. The term was coined back in 2019 by the authors Andrew Rowe and Will White, mostly to solve a marketing problem. Their books scratched the same itch as LitRPG, but they had no video game interface to point at. Progression fantasy is about earned, trackable growth. Training, breakthroughs, mastery. The measuring stick can be anything. Cultivation stages, magic ranks, a martial ladder. Game stats are optional. Read Cradle by Will White for the clean version, a clear power ladder and no stat boxes anywhere. Or Mother of Learning by Domagoj Kremaic for a wizard grinding skill inside a time loop. Cultivation stories are the genre's largest branch. Here's the test. Strip every number out of the book. If it's still fundamentally about the climb, you're holding progression fantasy. Now, LitRPG. LitRPG is the strict one. The game mechanics aren't a metaphor, or an interface pasted on top. They're real inside the story, printed right in the text. Attributes, experience, levels, skills, and the flat system notifications that announce them. Progression here is usually measured through combat or skill acquisition, and you watch the numbers move. Dungeon Crawler Carl, by Matt Dinneman, and He Who Fights with Monsters, by the author who writes Ashurtaloon, are the easy entry points. The test, if a formatted stat box appears, or a line like, "You have reached level 4, it's LitRPG." Most LitRPG is also progression fantasy, because most of it is about getting stronger. The two circles overlap heavily. A book can be both at once, and plenty of the best ones are. Then there's GameLit. GameLit is the widest term and the loosest. The rule of thumb is, it feels like a game. Game elements are central to the story, but the strict numeric apparatus is optional. A virtual world, a game premise, a dungeon. Enough to put gaming at the center, without committing to spreadsheets. This is where the arguing happens. Some readers use GameLit as the umbrella that contains LitRPG, with LitRPG being the numbers on the page room inside the GameLit house. Others use it as a sibling label for game-flavored books that aren't strict LitRPG. Both usages are common, and you'll see both in the wild. For examples, Ready Player One, by Ernest Cline, is set inside a game, but it's light on stat math. And the novel NPCs, by Drew Hayes, plays in a game world from the non-player side. Game forward, numbers optional. So picture 3 circles. The progression fantasy circle holds everything centrally about getting stronger. The GameLit circle holds everything game-flavored. And LitRPG is the overlap, where game-flavored meets explicit numbers. It usually sits inside the progression circle too, because the numbers are normally tracking a climb. A cultivation novel with no interface lands in progression fantasy, outside LitRPG. A cozy mystery set in a game world, with no leveling, lands in GameLit, outside progression fantasy. A dungeon crawl with stat screens and a hard power curve lands in all three. The labels aren't a hierarchy so much as three different angles on the same shelf. So do you actually need to care? For reading, no. The labels are shelf finders, not rules, and no book reads better once you filed it correctly. Pick the feeling you're after, the climb, the game, or both, and follow it. For searching and recommending, a little. Knowing that Cradle is progression fantasy and not LitRPG saves you a disappointed reader who wanted stat screens. And knowing the right search terms gets you to the right corner of an enormous genre faster. That's the whole practical value, and it's real. But it's smaller than the arguments around it suggest. For the curious, here's where the integration era sits. It's LitRPG with progression fantasy bones. The game machinery is explicit, and on the page, a 6-attribute system the characters read directly. But the engine of the series isn't the numbers going up. It's what a measuring system does to a person who lives inside it for a lifetime, which is the character-first concern progression fantasy is built around. Stats you can see, and a climb that costs something, both at once, which is the point. New to all of this, the Free Reader's Primer is the long-form version of this orientation. What LitRPG is, where to start, and the 6-stat system the integration era runs on, in 2 short parts. Subscribe at integrationera.com, and it's in your inbox right away. No designation required. The Integration Era is a science fiction series about a world remade by an alien system nobody asked for. You've been listening to The Integration Era by Charlie Forrett. All content is copyright 2026 by Charlie Forrett. All rights reserved. Voices produced by Speechify. New stories, world-building deep dives, character dossiers, and more are available now at integrationera.com. Subscribe to get notified when the next post drops. The system is watching. You might as well keep up.